Hey, Truth Seekers, Zach here. In this post, we're going to talk about magic mushrooms, spirituality, and self advancement. And we're going to go to an unlikely source. CNN actually did a report not long ago. Well, it's years ago now. At one point, it wasn't. It was not long ago, but they did a report with Johns Hopkins University and magic mushrooms and the benefits of psilocybin. Let's check this out real quick.
36 people were on what many say was a life-changing trip, but none of them ever left a university laboratory. They volunteered to take the psychedelic ingredient that puts the so-called magic in certain kinds of mushrooms. And now there's a surprising follow-up. CNN's Carol Costello joins us live with the results. Carol, what's happening now?
Well, John, maybe the hippies of the 60s weren't just on something. Maybe they were onto something. Scientists at Johns Hopkins now say magic mushrooms really can expand your mind, producing a kind of religious experience. 14 months ago, they gave dozens of volunteers magic mushrooms, and today, those volunteers are still feeling the effects. The whole Johns Hopkins study seems just so hippy-dippy 60s. It brings to mind Timothy Leary, the man who first widely touted the alleged magic in this tiny mushroom.
5 years ago, by accident in Mexico, I took Mexican mushrooms.
Leary, a Harvard researcher, claimed his mushroom-induced psychotic trip was so spiritual it led him and a generation to
turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Yeah, until the federal government stepped in and made hallucinogenic drugs illegal. Fast forward to 2006 and this research room at Johns Hopkins. 36 volunteers took part in an initial study on whether psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, really does have a lasting spiritual effect on people. Dee Dee Osborne, a business consultant, volunteered to find out.
It's a very beautiful feeling. I've not felt anything like that before.
Osborne, lying on this couch, received one dose over an 8-hour period. She saw a kaleidoscope of colors. Then
there was a tearing open of my heart, and then the feeling that we were all one.
The effects of that single session are still with her 14 months later, and with other volunteers. The study says at 2 months, the volunteers rated the experience as having spiritual significance and sustained positive changes in behavior.
Most people had experiences that really looked quite indistinguishable from classically occurring mystical type experiences.
The study is nothing like those done in the 60s. They're far more controlled. The goal is to explore whether this drug could prove therapeutic to those terminally ill.
Volunteers who are under psychological distress secondary to a cancer diagnosis. And the thought here is that an experience of this type, primary mystical experience, might well alter the course and the perception that the individual has of their disease process and quality of life.
As for those volunteers who took that long, strange trip on Johns Hopkins' couch, the study says most have no regrets and feel their world is a better place because of it. Now, please keep in mind magic mushrooms are illegal in the United States, and they can be dangerous if taken without strict supervision. All of the volunteers in the Hopkins study were psychologically prepped for 6 to 9 months. Johns Hopkins scientists say the magic mushrooms can also produce fear and intense anxiety in some people. John?
Fascinating study, Carol. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, where do we sign up? The gun lobby warns Barack Obama.
How about that, Truth Seeker? From magic mushrooms to the gun lobby. You know what's interesting about NRA and magic? NRA is 14 plus 18 plus 1 equals 33, and magic itself is a word with 33. And look at the little tribute to Thelema in the end of magic, the 9-3 coding. But that's beside the point, Truth Seeker. I want to stay on the magic mushrooms here. Once upon a time, many years ago in my life, I got to experience magic mushrooms for the first time. And I walked away with a lot of thoughts, and one of them was, man, I wish we lived in a different world where people were more open-minded about this. I just felt that right away there was a real healing quality to magic mushrooms. And let's be clear, Truth Seeker. Magic mushrooms, at the end of this thing, there was a warning about magic mushrooms. There is a real danger to them. I've seen somebody have a very bad time on magic mushrooms. But that's where responsibility and education comes in. If you take the right dosage of magic mushrooms, the right quantity, which would be a subtle dosage, not a large quantity. If you take a subtle dosage, magic mushrooms can be a real tool in self-advancement and waking up. Before we get into that, I just want to show you the special gematria of magic mushrooms. So using Pythagorean gematria, magic mushrooms, the plural, typically you take more than one, sums to 66, this very special number. And the word magic itself has a gematria, simple English, of 33. We talk about this relationship between 33 and 66 so often. And magic mushrooms with simple English gematria also has very interesting gematria. The word Christianity equals 155. And the book used in Christianity is the Bible, of 66 books. Fascinating that we find the same numbers here, possibly a coincidence, possibly not. Because magic mushrooms truly are a spiritual experience if you let them be. In this video, we heard this woman talk about this feeling of oneness. Truth Seeker, if you've never done magic mushrooms before, let me give you an introduction to what it might be like. And keep in mind that I am somebody who has introduced many people on this planet to magic mushrooms for the first time. And everybody I've introduced them to, I've done it in an enlightening way, in a safe way, and everyone's been grateful for it. And I honestly wish I could share this with the whole world. I know there's a bunch of people on this planet who would never even think to take magic mushrooms because they've been taught their whole life how bad things such as this are. But let me tell you something that's on the contrary to that. When you take magic mushrooms, imagine yourself camping. You're in the woods. If you took these magic mushrooms, what would happen is at first nothing would happen. You would think, oh, these don't even do anything. And then after about 45 minutes, you might start to feel some sensations in your body. And then you might start to get a case of the giggles. And then slowly you might start slipping into a world that feels slightly different. And what's interesting about this new world is it's the same world you were in before, but everything looks a little bit different. Everything smells a little bit different. And your perspective is all a little bit different. It's almost as if you're reset as a human being and you become more in touch with the natural world around you. I asked you to imagine being in the woods. Imagine being in the woods and looking at the trees and seeing them the first time as more alive. Typically when we look at trees, we know they're alive, they're plant life, but imagine looking at them and seeing as living, the same way as you look at a human being that's alive. Somehow when you take magic mushrooms, this ability to see the life and the living things around you is unlocked. And you truly can feel the oneness with all things living around you. Now imagine you're in the woods and you're enjoying this beautiful surroundings. And then imagine all of a sudden a very loud plane flies overhead. Typically, you would be aware of the loud plane. But now in this state of magic mushrooms, you're going to be much more aware of just how loud that plane is. Same as if a car was to drive by. You would just be so much more aware of how loud and how powerful that machinery is. The line between things that are natural and the things that are man-made become much more clear. And you will notice that when you're in this state of being, under the influence of psilocybin, which is the chemical in magic mushrooms that has the impact that it does, when you're under this influence of psilocybin, you realize how much more you appreciate nature, and at the same time, probably how much more you want to distance yourself away from the things that are unnatural and loud and noisy, such as vehicles and machinery. The other thing is, True Seeker, is magic mushrooms can give you real clarity on things that you've struggled with your entire life. And that could be a diversity of things. That could be problems you have within your own family, problems you have within your own peer group, personal problems you have, maybe even public speaking. It's like being under this influence of psilocybin in a responsible level gives you the ability to have new perspective and greater perspective and overcome the hurdles you could not overcome before. The many people I've done magic mushrooms with have expressed these same things: the mental clarity that they've ever had before, the appreciation for nature they've never had before, the connection to the earth that they've never had before. These are not bad things. These are good things. These are perspective shaping. And really, that's what hallucinogenic drugs and hallucinogenic chemicals are. They're a chance to shape perspective and further yourself if you're responsible. True Seeker. So to wrap this up, what I would recommend to you if you're interested in trying magic mushrooms is to investigate this variety. You pronounce this cyanescence. They're often called cyans for short. They grow in the Pacific Northwest and other regions for small periods of time. Up where I live, they grow in late October, early November. True Seeker, you should never try to pick these mushrooms on your own unless you're with somebody who knows what they're doing. But a good way to tell if there's psilocybin in a mushroom and it's safe is if the stem has bluing in it. If you can see this here, this type of bluing is the indicator of the cyanescence. I know how to pick these myself, and the danger is, when you pick them, is there's varieties that look very much like this, but they have slightly different color. They're just a tiny bit more orange, and those ones are highly poisonous. So don't pick these on your own. Only get them from a safe source, somebody who knows what they're doing. But if you can get your hands on them, this is what I recommend you do. Write this down. If you really want to try this, True Seeker, and I recommend you do. If you've never done magic mushrooms before, I guarantee you this is going to be one of the most rewarding experiences in your life if you do it the right way. I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean it. I mean, it's such a powerful experience. I wish everybody could experience the right way in a safe way, just so they knew. But this is what you want to do. To start, if you've never done it before, you just want to eat 1 gram. You need a scale and you want to weigh out 1 gram. That's a very light dosage. After it kicks in after an hour and you know what it's all about, you can take another 0.5 gram. You can eat 1 more 0.5 gram. So you've taken 1.5 grams. This is a good subtle dosage. It will get you to where you need to be. What's going to happen is after it kicks in, it's going to last for between 3 and 4 more hours. So you have to have a block of time prepared. And you don't want to drive or do anything like that. This is a totally walking foot experience. It's okay to ride in a car. That can be fun. But do not try to drive at all on these. This is not a driving experience. But yeah, True Seeker, right here. This unlocks a lot of Earth's mysteries for everybody. And think about it, they come from nature. In my mind, God left these here for us to unlock part of our truth. And a lot of people would tell you otherwise. They tell you they're dangerous and scary and of the devil. I say no way. And, I have a good buddy who I introduced these to who was a hardcore atheist and he was into all that God is not great, and that was his main thing to talk about. It's just, he just wanted everybody to be an atheist. Well, I'll tell you what, the first time he did magic mushrooms, his whole perspective changed. All of a sudden, he felt it was impossible for him to be an atheist anymore. He knew there was something greater out there, a greater power. He could feel it. And that's what was expressed in the beginning of this video. And True Seeker, from my own experience, I know that's true. And from all the people I've shared it with, they've essentially communicated the same thing. So the reason I'm doing this video is because I just realized there's not a lot of videos on YouTube advocating for magic mushrooms, and I think that's too bad. I'm out there for truth, and I really think magic mushrooms, especially this variety right here, cyanescence, are gateways to finding more truth about yourself and your own existence. It should be noted that the most common variety of magic mushrooms that people do are cubensis, which are usually growing out of rice cakes. They're okay, but they're not these cyanescents. These cyanescents are what you want to get your hands on if you can do it. These are the real deal. So, all right, Truth Seeker, just want to drop some new knowledge, do something a little bit different. And yeah, if you got any questions, feel free to ask them. All right, until next time.